This is the Ted Wallison Podcast. Brought to you by Halenda's, the meat people. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortino's, and Foodland locations. Halenda's, the way sausage should taste. And Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. And now, here's Ted Wallison.
My special guest this week stars as Detective William Murdoch on CBC's hit television show Murdoch Mysteries. He has received numerous awards for his work on television and film, including the prestigious Actor Award of Excellence for his lifetime of work. This year, he is nominated for a Canadian Screen Award in the category Best Lead Actor. Yannick Bisson, welcome. How are you?
Well, thanks very much. I'm doing great. I'm very happy to be here. Been listening to you for a long time, so I'm thrilled that you wanted to talk to me.
Oh, I'm thrilled that you're on. I'm a big fan of your show. I found out by a friend who said to me, he says, Ted, he says, I saw the show yesterday, you got to watch it. Stephen Harper was a guest. I said, it's called The News, Norm. He says, no, he was on a show called Murdoch Mysteries. And so then I tuned into it, and I thought, wow, what a fascinating concept. I kind of originally...
Yeah.
I held back from watching it, I think, initially, because it was, to me, typical CBC. When I grew up, CBC did so many dramas that were period pieces, and they weren't all that exciting, to be honest with you. And I guess that kind of kept me away at first. But then once I got into it, I got hooked onto it. And because it is a period piece. Although you guys jump boundaries of dates and periods and times at will, don't you?
We do like to have fun. It's funny. I grew up watching the CBC and cut my teeth on all of the crime procedural stuff, a lot of British exports and so on. And you're right. We've been doing things in Canada. It's a strange model. We've been doing things here a certain way for a long time, and not necessarily watching a lot of what we make. But that's changing. Certainly has changed in my time, and I appreciate it. But when we started Murdoch Mysteries, there was no period stuff on the landscape. Not much to speak of on CBC, and certainly elsewhere there was next to nothing. I think there was Boardwalk Empire maybe around 2007. So, I didn't hold much hope in my heart that the show would go, very far for very long, regardless of, the things about the script that attracted me. But, here we are 15 seasons in, and we're still at the top. People still watch the show and still want more. So, right on.
I mentioned that you had Stephen Harper on when he was the Prime Minister at the time. Whose idea was it to get him on, and how difficult was that?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, Ted, that was Stephen's idea.
Wow.
Because he was a fan of the show. He and his daughter watched the show, and they were fans. They liked the historical aspects. And he actually reached out and said, hey, I've got a story idea for you guys about the beginnings of what we know as the NHL now, and the debate between professionalism and amateur hockey, and whether they should be paid or not. And he's written a lot on the subject. He's actually a hockey historian. And so we kind of said, well, hey, that's a really great idea. How do you feel about maybe doing a turn on the show? And he agreed. And so, through lots of logistics, a lot of hard work by a lot of great people, he showed up one day with full security detail, and there were dogs and motorcycles and helicopters and things like that, and came and filmed. Because, showbiz is dangerous, so you got to have your security.
What are some of the other non-actor stars who have appeared on the show?
Well, this season, I'm one of my idols, somebody I was really thrilled to meet. And it's, again, a process to sort of pave the way, build the relationship, talk to the right people. But Geddy Lee of Rush does a guest spot this year, which was really special for me. We've kind of met each other over the past few years. We have mutual friends. And so through charity initiatives, we were able to sort of forge a relationship. And his daughter, who's an actor, actually ended up, complete aside, ended up doing a spot on our show as well. And then, that just sort of, I guess, helped further the relationship. And then all of a sudden, there he is.
Yeah, that's really cool. What I like about the fact is it is historic in its nature, the program. Some of it you have to think, okay, well, exactly how true is that? I mean, I wouldn't base a thesis on any of the programs that I watch, but it's quite interesting watching some of the inventions take place over time. Exactly whether they're too exact to date or not, I'm not sure. But
well, yeah, that's a tough one to sort of nail down specifically. And I think, the fact that we do that pretty routinely, Oscar Wilde just happened to be walking through Toronto, things like that. We take some creative license, but we do try to narrow it to a very specific timeline that's as accurate as possible. Uh-huh. So as you know, people like Nikola Tesla and the like were here at that time and did have ventures here. And the sort of Great Lakes area is fairly tightly knit, so these people did make their way around. And Toronto, I like to say, the 6 degrees of Toronto, it has had that relationship for a long time, mm-hmm. and continues to. So I think people can sort of read between the lines sometimes, but we have had some letters from some well-meaning people that talk about certain China on the table not being accurate to period, and I appreciate that. But I think you have to sort of accept the spirit within which we do these things. Yeah. And, sometimes I myself have learned some things. There were electric cars prior to the Model T. The electric car was very systematically buried in favor of, petrol burning cars. So some of these things you learn along the way that you would think are futuristic and far out, but they've been around a long time.
When you began the program in year one, what were your thoughts? What were the thoughts of the cast members that you can recall? I mean, nobody can predict how well a program is going to do or not doing, but sometimes you have a gut feeling where you think there's something about this that's got it. There's something about this. Did you have one of those? There's something about this in you?
Well, we did some work. We read with each other. I can tell you a funny story. During the audition process, it wasn't that easy for me to get the role. The network was considering two of us, the younger version and the older version. And so there was a lot of debate, and there were times where, it was quiet for 2 weeks. I didn't know whether I had the job and so on. And I telephoned my agent, a gentleman named Perry Zemmel at the time, and I said, gee, what's going on? He goes, well, you know what, just calm down. They're debating between using a younger Murdoch or an older Murdoch. I said, well, geez, who's this older Murdoch that they're considering? I was the older version. So
what would the younger version be? 11? What is it, like young Sheldon or something?
I don't know, but it was a funny, really humbling experience. So I kind of went into the entire thing just keeping to myself, keeping quiet, and just doing my job, because it very nearly never was. So I'm, that fact is not lost on me. But the rest of the cast are just, on their own, are stellar. You look at Johnny Harris, who's, got an entirely whole other career that's got nothing to do with us, and we're lucky when we get him. Yeah.
It's a terrific cast, and they gel extremely well.
Yeah, and that's something you have to fight for. I think just like your family, just like your work environment, you got to really sort of, be willing to sort of take certain things on the chin and take one for the family. And then there are times where you got to have these sit down talks and go, all right, what's going on? And I've always been one to not let these opportunities go by because, things can fester and it can wreck the atmosphere of an otherwise, really terrific opportunity that we have.
Mhm.
And, 15 years, things happen. People's feelings get hurt. Things get misinterpreted. Anything can happen. And so it's important to just continually forge that relationship, and that, with the producers as well, with the network also, and anybody in between. Is just you really can't take it for granted, and you have to, make it work.
Do you ever worry that you're ever going to get to a point where somebody walks in and there's the jump of the shark script, as they say?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely.
And for people who don't know what that means, that harkens back to an old Happy Days episode where he literally jumped a shark in a pool, and from there the credibility of the show just went downhill.
Yeah, the Fonz. They were going for ratings, and they did a carryover to the next week of the Fonz jumping his motorcycle over a pond with a shark in it, and it just it didn't.
What were they thinking?
Yeah, well, we have some pretty crazy story ideas, some pretty zany stuff. Paul Aiken, one of our writers, who's an executive producer as well. He's been with us the entire ride, and his scripts are known for being outlandish. Yeah. But we've sewn that in from the beginning, that fantastical aspect to the show. So we are expected to push those boundaries. And it's expected from us from time to time to ask those questions of things that we don't really know the answer to this day. But they're universal themes that people ask themselves about. And did this happen? And the pharaohs and the Egyptians and all the different mystical, neat stuff. The people who lived, the subterranean people. That was a big thing at the turn of the century. Yeah. Victorian era. People believed there were men living underground. There were the Martians. There was a fascination with Martians. There was a fascination with robots, automatons, and steam-powered robots that would, possibly take over our work duties and things like that. So,
how long do you think the show can go? How long would you like it to go?
I've said many times, Ted, that the show wouldn't end on my decision, as long as the caliber of the scripts continues to be as great as it has been. I wouldn't stand in the way. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Mm-hmm. I've done a lot of different shows. I've worked with thousands of people. I've worked with Academy Award winners. I've worked with Frank Sinatra. I would be happy to do any number of other projects in my life. But man, this kind of opportunity is a once in a career opportunity. And I get to do so many things. I get to direct now. That has been a love for me. I'm finally doing the part of showbiz that I enjoy the most, which is that sort of quarterbacking, collaborative team thing that directing is. You pull ideas from everybody plays to their strengths, and you just sort of work within certain parameters, and you got to be creative. That taxes me, or I shouldn't say taxes me, but it forces me to sort of fire on so many more cylinders, and I just love it. And then being one of the producers on the show, that part I didn't really realize, but I've been actively doing that since day one. I've been sticking to the mission. And so whenever somebody says, that's okay, I say, no, hold on a second. We're in Victoria era, Toronto, New England, as it were. I'll have to have you do that line over again. And I've just sort of been the gatekeeper, just naturally. It's just been my mission to just quality control on the show, which is what effectively a network producer would be there doing on a regular network show.
I'm quite fascinated by actors who want to direct it. It seems that a lot of actors want to direct at one point or another, and I try to draw a parallel between actors and athletes. And I think to myself, okay, are there as many hockey players who want to be coaches as there are actors who want to be directors? And I don't think so. Why are there so many actors who want to be directors?
I think it's an opportunity to up your game, to use your sports reference. I think, in sports, yeah, a lot of players develop into other positions because they have such unique strengths and a unique perspective to become a defensive coach, to become an offensive coach, to scout talent and so on. So I've seen that happen a lot. And then it's a similar thing with acting. Certainly, if you act enough and in enough different capacities and with enough people, at a certain point, you learn efficiencies and you want to get to the next level because you are on set often this conduit through which all the different departments work. You facilitate a lot of different departments working. Well, the director does as well in a slightly different capacity. That's really what you do. You facilitate all the different departments coming together and creating this one thing right to the very end. And so I can see that being attractive for a lot of actors, but at the same time, I know a lot of actors who are just absolutely not interested in it as foreign to them as, working in as a contractor. It doesn't really appeal to them, and it's not something that they are drawn to per se. And I've even had some actors, a part of my cast, who wanted to shadow, to learn the process, to be exposed to what happens before they show up on set, how do these decisions get made, and so on, and just all of it to understand better, to be a better actor. They're not even interested in being a director. They just want to know from the beginning to the end what that person goes through in order to be a better actor for them. So it's just every person's different. I think we see that transition happen a lot because it's a famous thing. We are aware of these actors becoming directors because they're of note. They have notoriety. But you may not hear as much about people who move through departments in different corporate structures and they become the head, the Bezos or whoever of their company eventually.
If you could only do one or the other, that would be act or direct. And if you had to choose, could you choose, and which would you choose?
I would choose to direct, absolutely. And the reason for that is that it's you have something much more tangible at the end of the day, I believe. Even though it's the exact same thing, it's a piece of film or a tape or a digital file of something. It's the exact same thing. You have contributed in every scene instead of just some of the scenes and just one side of the camera of that scene. And you just have that much more of a tangible sort of end result. And that's been the thing I've struggled with as a performer since the beginning. Is it's sort of it doesn't gratify as much as building something out of wood or metal or something like that. And I've done a lot of that. It's less of a tangible result. And so directing is like, I need that. I did this and this bad thing happened and we ended up with that.
And once you've directed a couple of times, do you find that you have a tendency to, while you're working on a scene with an actor, start suggesting maybe do this, maybe do that? As opposed to just acting in the scene, all of a sudden you become an actor / director at the same time? Or do you try to compartmentalize those things?
That's tough. That's difficult. Because, there are some boundaries, in a sense. There are boundaries in the acting world that, it's not always cool for an actor, whether it's the lead actor or any actor, to tell another actor, hey, I think you should do this. There are times where I do jump in, and it's for several reasons, and I have to be cautious because, I don't want to be that asshole lead actor telling me what to do on his show.
I know.
That's That's a difficult thing. It's dicey. So you really, I really have to respect the artist and respect that there's a chain, there's an order, there's a decorum of sorts. There's a way that things are done, and that is generally through the director. And I have to respect that person's role in the thing as well.
Yeah.
But then there are also times where it's like, we reach a certain comfort level, and I can say to somebody, whatever it may be. And oftentimes it's just an issue of quality control. It's like, hey, you haven't been here before. You might want to keep this in mind. But, I'm loath to give somebody a line reading or to get too specific, even though I have in the past and people have been pretty gracious. Generally speaking, I have to build that up. I have to build that relationship up. Otherwise, it can come off the wrong way.
Sure.
And it's just an issue of like, I'm just trying to you instinctively just, here's the quickest result to what I think would be best for you. We're doing this scene. It's probably going to end up on your actor demo reel. Don't forget to pick up this little nuance here. And it's just a suggestion.
Right.
And most people are great.
More of the Ted Wallison podcast after this.
Hey, let me take a moment to tell you about my friends at Halenda's. They are the meat people. I've been a fan of their products for years now, and without a doubt, they make some of the best sausage in Ontario. They are multiple award winners, having captured the Ontario's Finest Meat Competition's coveted Award of Excellence on 3 occasions, in addition to dozens of individual product awards. Halenda's has also received the Grand Champion ribbon at the past 2 Royal Winter Fair's ready-to-eat meat snack competitions. So whether you're preparing a charcuterie board or a full-blown sit-down dinner for your friends or family, you'll find Halenda's award-winning products at fine meat shops throughout the province, now including selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortino's, and Foodland stores, along with their 7 Halenda's locations. Their barbecued kielbasa is my favorite. On a fresh bun with horseradish, it is out of this world. But don't just take my word for it. Judge for yourself. On your barbecue, in your kitchen, or straight from the refrigerator. Halenda's, the way sausage should taste. Are you looking forward to a wedding in your calendar? Hey, it's Ted Wallison for Tom's Place. If you're the father of the bride or a special guest who needs an elegant new suit or tuxedo, Tom is the wedding specialist who will help you get ready for the big day. And if you're the lucky bridegroom, Tom is a friend of the groom and the best man to help you dress the entire wedding party for your special day. Whether it's formal or informal, destination wedding or traditional, Tom's have contemporary, tailored suits, or classic tuxedos with all the accessories. So why rent a tux when it's so affordable to buy a classic that'll take you to events for years to come? Find out more at Tom's Place in Kensington Market. No one can dress you better or save you more than our wedding specialist. Tom's Place will suit you.
Now back to Ted and his guest.
I'm speaking today with actor Yannick Bisson. Do they ever give you a break when they pull you over speeding?
I have. I have been pulled over a couple of times, and the traffic stops ended up being a lot longer than I remember when I was younger.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I think to myself, well, gee, that was actually really nice. And now that I think about it, I think they may have recognized me because we had a long chat and I left without a ticket. So maybe, but they were pretty cool about it. I will say that. Nobody outright says, hey, you're that guy. No. And they're doing a job, and I appreciate the job that they're doing. And anytime I've been pulled over, it was for a reason. So, I have to sort of keep my mouth shut. And if they want to chat, great, fine.
I mean, you don't keep like a back seat filled with Murdoch Mysteries merchandiser you can pass out every time you're in trouble?
Can you imagine?
Yeah, really.
Can you imagine? Hey, listen, how would you like a hat?
Yeah. Want to swap badges?
Oh, boy.
You must have had times because the show has to be a lot of fun to do because as I mentioned, the cast gels so well. So it just seems to me like there's got to be days where you go on set and you think, man, this is going to be a lot of fun and this is going to be great. And subsequently, there must be opportunities that arise where suddenly something happens that you weren't planning on it and you think, damn, that's good, keep it in. Does that happen?
Oh, yeah. I think you have to actively cultivate that vibe that you're talking about. You have to actively. It's got to be fun, and oftentimes, it starts at the top. I know that a lot of mood on set uh, um, begins with the lead performer, because I've been on many sets where the lead performer they were not pleasant people, and so there's a certain tone that a set will take when those people are around, and that's not lost on me. And so I've tried to always keep the tone of our set very upbeat and positive, and an opportunity for people to be creative, to give ideas, because my idea is not always the best, and that's the bottom line.
Right.
So some things do happen, like you said, organically, and it's like, great.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
We're here for those great ideas that come from wherever and whomever, and then we keep it. And there it is. It's in the show, and you watch. And that's why when I watch Murdoch Mysteries, I laugh my ass off, and nobody knows why, because I remember all of those things. I remember what that day was all about, and why that particular thing stayed in the movie, and how it came to be, and what we were laughing about at the time, or trying to keep a straight face during a certain scene. And so it's always pleasant, and that's really why I've been there for as long as I have, and I think a lot of other people as well.
Well, can you give me an example of something of a situation that happened that took everybody by surprise, that somehow got left in the show that wasn't originally supposed to be there?
Okay, so there is a scene, and I don't know what season it was from, but it was the Murdoch, Dr. Ogden and William Murdoch hire Frank Lloyd Wright to design their new home.
Of course.
And
who
Murdoch,
else?
yes, right. And Murdoch is very leery of this young startup, and everyone is very critical about these houses with no walls and no rooms. It's all just open, and it's just a complete disaster. But Murdoch insists on doing one personal touch, and that is a what's effectively a microwave oven, but it's a Murdochian potato cooking room. So it's this huge contraption,
All right.
and of course somebody gets stuffed in there, and the thing turned on, and they get murdered at the presentation of the house, and off we go, right? So we are there the day that we have to discover this. We're filming, and there's a crowd of people milling around inside the Murdoch home, and all of our lead characters run from one place where they've just heard the sound and the scream. They run, and they open the potato cooking thing, and the camera was sitting behind with an open sort of slot, looking at us once the sort of door opens. And what they had done is they had preset all kinds of blood and meat and slime and all this stuff, and we didn't know. So we come running around and open the door, and we all burst out laughing. It was so completely heinous and disgusting, and it was just too far beyond, and we all laughed our asses off. So we immediately had to do it again. But the take that stayed in there, you can see all four of us are actually stifling a huge amount of laughter, but they cut it really fast, so you can't tell. But that take stayed in.
Yeah, that's great. I figured that much because it seems like you all get along so well. I mean, I've worked at places where people have gotten along really well, but it's not every day, obviously. But for the most part, it's a good set. And you don't hear these ugly rumors and where people are yelling and banging each other's heads like you do on other television shows, which is fortunate. But then again, we're Canadian; we're a lot more polite.
We're all much nicer to each other.
But I'd like to see somewhere down. The fact that you've gone into the past. With some of the characters that you have, Alexander Graham Bell, we mentioned, a number of Tesla. But I'd like to see a future episode where it's reversed, where suddenly, like, the family from Schitt's Creek shows up.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, we've done some stuff like that where we had Arlene Dickinson come in and be a very smart, financial savvy person.
Yeah.
You know, we've had a lot of great people come in and be a version of
Yeah.
themselves in essence, or of what they're famous
Yeah.
for. And that's a lot of fun. Actually, Colin Mockery plays an arch villain at this in our show, and
He's great.
he's this very sweet, great, hilarious comedian
Yeah.
guy. But for him to be this sort of arch villain has been,
Yeah.
I think he enjoys it, and we certainly have been enjoying it. I mean, and he's just so fantastic to have around. I ended up directing a movie, and so I hired him for the movie. Him and his wife Deb McCabe, which you probably know as well.
Yep.
McGrath, excuse me, Deb McGrath, and it was a treat. It was so awesome, and that's really what it's about. It's just having all these great people that you love and respect and get along with, and make shows so that it's a good time, not a grind.
Now, you're doing commercials for Intact, which is an automobile insurance company, and they're actually really well done commercials. Most people are not fans of commercials, so you better do it well, otherwise people are going to be really turning against you. But they're done well, and I thought to myself the first couple of times I saw them, I thought, for Yannick, this must be a good thing because it gives him a chance to step outside of the character so that people don't immediately think that this is the only character that exists inside that particular body, because actors can get stereotyped in to the point where it paralyzes their future careers, where people can't see anything
Absolutely.
but Detective Murdoch, and you don't want that.
Yeah, you nailed it there, Ted. That's absolutely true. What I spend my days doing is actively looking for work that is different from Murdoch.
Yeah.
And by that I mean in format and in character and performance and so on. So I'm really glad that things went the way they did with Intact Insurance, who are terrific people. The agency, the representatives from the company are just terrific. And yeah, I get to do some lighthearted stuff, some comedy, some off the cuff stuff, and we improvise sometimes. Some of those taglines that have been ended up in the commercial were stuff that that I improvised. We did 10 different things, and one or two of them I improvised, and they just ended up keeping them, and that is so much fun.
Where you mentioned to the guy to get free parking, and then you say, "Is it too early?" That one?
Too soon?
Too soon? Yeah.
Too soon? Yeah. That one wasn't mine.
Okay.
That one wasn't mine. But it was fun to do that one, and we shot underneath in the parking underneath the Olympic Stadium, which was freezing cold, but it was an interesting spot. And yeah, all of the other stuff that I do is really to either contrast or complement what I do with Murdoch, and to be as different as possible because of that. I can be very straight-laced on that show, and it is of a certain part of the spectrum, and deliberately tight to the vest and deliberately proper for the period, for the character.
Yeah.
And that's kind of his superpower a little bit, don't show too much, so that when I do show something, it has more impact, and I leave room for everybody else to sort of play all the colors, and I'm the through line in a sense.
Your character on that show is the kind of character that every mother would have loved their daughter to marry. Handsome, professional, polite policeman. I got all those P's in there. Just the perfect guy right there.
Yeah, it's
and I take it that you're not that far from that character in that you are polite. You are a good-looking guy, and
wow, that's very kind.
Other than the fact that you're probably a Habs
I'm big
fan.
with the moms, I will say that.
You're big with the moms.
I'm big with the moms.
Yeah.
I'm big with the aunts, the moms, the sisters. But it's funny. The bulk of the time, people that ask me to pose for a picture or something like that is a lot of guys. a lot of guys are like, oh man, this is for my mom, or this is for my girlfriend, or
Oh,
whatever.
no, but I
And
think that you'd probably be a great guy to sit down and
it's
have a
cool.
beer with as well.
Well, I like to think so, I guess. I try to stay up on the news, you know.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. You're originally from Montreal, right?
I am.
Yeah. A Habs fan growing up?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm from Toronto. I was a Leafs fan. But my brother grew up with me as my brother. I grew up as a Habs fan. I have no idea why, but he did. And I had to spend an unbearable season watching his team play really well last year and beat the Leafs out. Now this year the Habs are playing in Junior B, I believe.
Yeah, it's tough. Win some, lose some. Yeah, you know what? I've been a Habs fan all my life. The first hockey sweater I ever saw was a Habs sweater, a home jersey. So, you know, what are you going to do? It's part of your culture. It's part of who you are,
Yeah.
and you can't. I'm sure you'll agree. You can't change it.
No.
No matter what, you win some, you lose some, and you stick with it.
Yeah. Yeah, growing up, you self-admittedly, you weren't the greatest in school. You had poor attendance habits, and you kind of regret that looking back?
Always. I'm very self-aware about that. What's the word? Self-conscious about it. I was not able to, either through my own decisions or through lack of support. There wasn't, you know, online schooling. There wasn't even anything that wasn't attendance based was not really in place when I was trying to get through high school. And it was difficult because I was making a ridiculous amount of money and getting a huge amount of experience and culture traveling around the country. I would film in you know, the Saguenay region of Quebec, or I would film on Vancouver Island in BC. And the cultural things that I would learn and the technical knowledge that I was gaining working on shows long term, traveling, you know, becoming empathetic to different people's struggles and all this stuff, I would argue now was invaluable as a human, but it had zero value to my Ontario education credits. So it was really difficult because I would test well. I was a reasonably intelligent kid, but then, you know, I would miss 4 weeks of school and I would just shoot my year to hell.
Yeah.
And it was tough to always try to come back, because then I would come back to square one and it's like, well, I know all this, and then I'd be bored and I'd have zero interest in doing it all over again.
Sure.
And so, you know, it fell by the wayside, but I was making money. I was making far more money than, you know, my parents. And, you know, I blew through some of it. I tried things. You know, you buy yourself a car, or you crash that car, you know, all the different things that you do that are stupid with money. But there's valuable experiences that helped me to be a better adult. And then it's interesting because as I was going through all of this as a teenager, at the same time, a lot of what I was filming was being used. Some NFB projects or some CBC projects would end up being used in the curriculum in schools to teach kids, you know, social studies or whatever. And, you know, the irony was just like brutal. But there it is. So now, you know, I have people that come up to me and say, I love your show, love your stuff. The first thing I ever saw was when I was in junior high. Your series, you know, Brothers by Choice was on, and then I have to kind of smile and think about, you know, how embarrassed I am that I didn't make it through high school.
Yeah,
but,
and you married at a young age. You were like, what, 21 or something? That's almost like a Murdoch era marriage.
Yeah, we were exactly right. We were very young. Chantel and I met actually the first time we were 15, and I was smitten, but she was dating other somebody else for a long time. And then we had a chance meeting a number of years later, and she agreed to go out with me, and I never let her go. I didn't even let her go home. She's been with me ever since.
That's great. That's great. You're an avid cyclist?
I am. Keeps me young, keeps me fit. And what I like about it is a lot of the tinkering aspect of it. There's a lot of social aspect of it, health, adrenaline, and then also there's travel associated with it. Like some people take their golf clubs, I take my bike.
Mm-hmm. Is that the place where Yannick goes when Yannick needs to break away from the world and just think to himself for a while?
Yeah, definitely out into nature, out into the forest, and the bike is optional, but definitely more often than not, I'll take my bike with me, and that just sends me off into that place, that place when I was little, the Rosebud moment.
Yeah.
For me is that, and then I regroup and get back in touch with the things that make me, and then I'm ready to go again.
Well, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. It's been a real thrill for me, and I say I'm a big fan of the show. I think and kudos to everybody you work with, because I think they're all doing an incredible job. I hope you keep going for years and years and years, and I look forward each week to find out who's going to be on. To me, it's
that's great.
And
so thank you so much for having me, Ted. I really appreciate it. From your lips to God's ears. I mean, I'll keep doing this until I can't anymore. I'll be honest with you. It's just been a wonderful opportunity that's part of, the Canadian fabric. How many shows have done that here in Canada, and I'm just very, very proud and very fortunate to be part of it.
Great stuff. Congratulations on your nomination this year as well, and good luck to you in that.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right.
That's awesome. Thanks.
All right. All the best to you. Hope to do this again.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
The Ted Wallachin podcast has been brought to you by Halenda's, the meat people. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortinos, and Foodland locations. Halenda's, the way sausage should taste. And Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. The Ted Wallachin podcast is produced by Joey Roselli. Technical production by Paul Gatt. Music by Bike Thieves. I'm Becky Coles. Submit your questions and comments to ted@twmedia.ca.